Kenedy, Texas. John B. Connolly Unit, December 2000. The John B. Connolly Unit sat low and flat against the South Texas scrubland like something the earth itself was trying to swallow. Razor wire caught the winter sunlight in brilliant, merciless loops. Guard towers broke the horizon. And yet, inside those walls, something far more dangerous than barbed wire was taking shape. A plan, years in the making, forged in the long silences between cell counts and the whispered conversations of men who had decided they would rather die free than live caged. They were not ordinary inmates. George Rivas was 30 years old and had been convicted of kidnapping and aggravated robbery, sentenced to 99 years, a number so vast it must have felt like a geological age. He was brilliant, methodical, and patient in the way that only a man with nothing but time can be. Those who knew him inside the Connolly Unit spoke of his intelligence not with admiration but with a kind of unease, the way you might speak of a storm gathering on the edge of a clear day. Rivas had been studying the prison's rhythms for months: the rotation of guards, the timing of shift changes, the soft spots in a system that trusted routine more than it trusted vigilance. Around him, Rivas assembled 6 men: Joseph Garcia, Randy Halprin, Larry Harper, Patrick Murphy Jr., Michael Rodriguez, and Donald Newberry. Their crimes ranged from murder to robbery, their sentences stacked like geological strata, years upon years pressing down on each of them. What bound them was not friendship in any conventional sense. It was desperation, calculation, and a shared conviction that the Texas Department of Criminal Justice had seen the last of them. The plan was audacious to the point of madness. On the afternoon of December 13, 2000, the 7 men moved through the prison like a slow current, calm, almost casual, spreading out across the maintenance area where civilian workers were present and supervision was thinner than usual. In a sequence that investigators would later describe as almost choreographed, they overpowered 14 guards and civilian workers, binding them with their own restraints, locking them in a storage room. They stripped some of the guards of their uniforms. They took weapons: handguns, a shotgun, and loaded a prison maintenance truck with supplies. Food, money taken from the seized wallets of their captives, clothing, tools. No shots were fired. No one was killed. The violence was precise and controlled. Then they drove out, through the maintenance gate, into the winter afternoon, into the flat, open Texas sky. It would take prison authorities nearly 2 hours to realize that 7 of their most dangerous inmates were simply gone, swallowed by the South Texas landscape as cleanly as if the earth had opened and taken them. The warden's call set off a cascade of alerts that rippled outward across the state and then the country. The FBI, the U.S. Marshals, the Texas Rangers, local law enforcement in every surrounding county. Roadblocks went up. Helicopters swept the mesquite and cedar brush. But the Texas 7, as they would come to be known, had not run into the brush. They had driven calmly along state highways, already shedding their prison-issue clothing in favor of the civilian garments they'd stolen from the guards. They had thought of everything, or nearly everything. What they had not accounted for, what no amount of meticulous planning could have prepared them for, was the full weight of America's attention. Within 48 hours, their faces were everywhere. Gas stations, television screens, the front pages of newspapers from Dallas to New York. The manhunt that followed would become one of the largest in Texas history. But in those first hours, the Texas 7 were simply gone, moving north through a country that did not yet know to look for them. Inside the Connolly Unit, the 14 men they had left bound and humiliated in that storage room were released and debriefed. Officials walked the maintenance yard in the fading light, trying to reconstruct the sequence of events. What struck investigators again and again was not the violence. There had been mercifully little, but the patience, the planning, the years of quiet observation that had gone into a single, stunning afternoon. This didn't happen in a day, one investigator would later say. This was a long time coming. He was more right than he knew. Irving, Texas, December 24, 2000. By Christmas Eve, the Texas 7 had been free for 11 days. They had traveled north and settled, with a kind of brazen calm, in the Dallas-Fort Worth suburb of Woodland Park, renting spaces at an RV park under false identities. They worked odd jobs. They attended a local church. To their neighbors, they were unremarkable, a group of working men, a little quiet, a little private, the kind of people you might nod to in a parking lot and forget by dinner. But they needed money. The cash they had taken from the prison guards was running low, and 7 men in hiding burned through resources quickly. They had already committed a series of armed robberies in the weeks following their escape: a Radio Shack, a sporting goods store, a dollar store, striking fast and disappearing before authorities could connect the dots. Each robbery was a calculated risk, and each one they had survived. Christmas Eve felt no different from any other night. Except that it was. The Oshman sporting goods store in Irving was busy with last-minute shoppers when the Texas 7 entered just before closing. What followed lasted approximately 11 minutes. The men corralled employees and customers, bound them, and began loading merchandise and cash into their vehicles. Guns, ammunition, clothing, thousands of dollars in goods taken with the cold efficiency of men who had done this before. And then Officer Aubrey Hawkins arrived. Hawkins was 29 years old, a 5-year veteran of the Irving Police Department and a father. He had responded to a silent alarm, pulling into the Oshman's parking lot alone, not yet knowing what he was driving toward. The shooting began almost immediately. Hawkins was struck 11 times. He was shot with his own weapon after it was taken from him. He died in the parking lot, alone on Christmas Eve, before additional officers could reach him. The killing of Aubrey Hawkins transformed everything. What had been a massive but somewhat abstract manhunt, 7 escaped convicts, dangerous but elusive, became something more primal and more urgent: the hunt for a cop killer. The Texas Rangers doubled their efforts. The FBI elevated the case. And on January 22, 2001, the television program America's Most Wanted aired a segment on the Texas 7 that reached millions of viewers across the country. Within days, a tip came in from Woodland Park, Colorado. Residents of the Coachlight RV Park had recognized the faces on their screens. The men who attended their local church. The men who seemed so ordinary. Law enforcement descended on the Colorado mountain town with overwhelming force. On January 21 and 22, 2001, 6 of the 7 were taken into custody, some surrendering without incident, one, Larry Harper, dying by suicide rather than be recaptured. The 7th, Patrick Murphy Jr., was apprehended separately. The manhunt was over. 39 days after the breakout from Kenedy. 11 days after the death of Aubrey Hawkins. In the years that followed, justice moved through the Texas courts with a slow, grinding certainty. 6 of the 7 were sentenced to death. Between 2008 and 2022, 5 were executed by lethal injection. The case of Randy Halpern wound through years of legal appeals related to judicial bias. But it was Aubrey Hawkins who remained the center of gravity for everyone touched by the case: his fellow officers, his family, the community of Irving that had lost him on the holiest night of the year. At the makeshift memorial that appeared outside the Oshman store in the days after his death, among the flowers and the candles and the photographs, someone had placed a single handwritten card. "He came when called. He always did." The Texas 7 had broken out of the most secure walls Texas could build. They had planned, plotted, and executed an escape of remarkable cunning. But in the end, what brought them down was not a rival intelligence or a superior force. It was the face of one officer, recognized on a television screen by an ordinary citizen thousands of miles from Kenedy. Aubrey Hawkins had, in his death, become the one thing the Texas 7 could not outrun: a reason to look. The Connolly unit still stands outside Kenedy, Texas. The maintenance gate the 7 men drove through that December afternoon has since been reinforced. But for those who were there, the guards, the investigators, the family of Aubrey Hawkins, the memory of those 39 days does not require reinforcement. It is already and always steel.